Thank you for joining us this week here on Retiring Well. You're going to want to stay tuned to the very end of the show this week. We have an action-packed educational show laid out for you this week. First, we dive right into essential sources of retirement income. When you're retired, where is that income going to come from? What is it going to look like? And what are some of the concerns you have to be looking out for? Then we have a special guest on the show from the Better Business Bureau, and they're going to be talking about what that is and what does it mean to be accredited from the Better Business Bureau. Then diving right into bonds versus stocks. We hear about diversification. A lot of times stocks get all the news, but with interest rates changing, should you be looking at bonds? And to wrap up the show, if you are single in retirement, what are some of the different things you have to be looking for and some of the biggest takeaways that you need to plan so you can plan to retiring well? All of this and so much more coming at you right here, right now on Retiring Well.
Retiring Well, brought to you by Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning and serving all of Northern Michigan. Retiring Well, helping you plan for a successful and comfortable retirement. Retiring Well, plan to retire well.
Hey, welcome to this segment on essential sources of retirement income. The first and the biggest one there we're going to start talking about is Social Security. You know, there's over 2/3 of the United States rely solely on Social Security for their retirement income. And so that's a big decision as they approach when to take it and how is it going to affect their tax plan. So how does Social Security get taxed is one thing that I think you should look at. And then when should you take it? If you start at 62, then you can start early, and they say the cumulative break-even point for it to be better to have waited is about 80 years old, okay, roughly in that age range. If you wait every year from age 62 to your full retirement age, that contractual income grows about 6% a year. And then from your full retirement age until age 70, it grows about 8% a year. And so what kind of contractual income and what have you earned? How's it going to fit in your tax plan? Definitely analyze your Social Security. The next thing would be maybe you have a company pension or a government pension. These are great sources of contractual lifetime income. They're going to pay you for life. Sometimes you can choose to have it paid not only for your life. If you were to pass away, you can have some survivor benefits. And there will be a lot of different ways that you can choose to take that survivor benefit and set that up. On that note, I would highly suggest that you check your beneficiaries. You know, personally speaking, I have a teacher pension, and when I first started teaching, my beneficiaries, I spent 6 months teaching before I got married, and so when I went back to check my beneficiaries, they were not in good order, so I had to adjust those. So just do a quick check if you have one of those kind of pensions. The next one would be annuities, okay? So sometimes in retirement, as people want to start taking money from what they've saved up, they want to look at an annuity. There's 3 basic annuities that you might want to look at. There's the very simple fixed annuity. Maybe it's a 2-year MIGA, multi-year guaranteed annuity. And those are very simple. They'll just give you a rate of return for a certain amount of time. There's 3 years and 5 years and things like that. The second one might be like a fixed indexed annuity. So this is where your rate of return is actually linked to the stock market. Let's call it the S&P 500 is a common index that it's going to follow. And these will usually have 1 year point-to-point tracking. And so if 1 year from issue, the stock market, the S&P 500 index is up, then you can actually participate with the growth. Let's say a year later, the stock market crashes and it's negative. Well, this is where you might get a 0 return. So you protect your principal. And then they have different ways that you can withdraw. And then you can also get these fixed indexed annuities that have income riders on them. And then this will be a source of contractual lifetime income. You can do single income or you can do joint income. Whole variety. If you're at all interested in those, I would definitely do your research and ask a lot of questions until you get a good idea of how closely that particular annuity might match the purpose of those kind of funds. The next thing is a good old 401k, IRA, or Roth. Okay, so what's a source of essential retirement income? Yeah, just saving up some money in these different either tax-deferred accounts or tax-free accounts. And you're saving them up, they're hopefully earning a good rate of return, and then you're going to get to that retirement where you might supplement and start pulling from them. And in that note, I would definitely encourage you to look at your tax diversification. If you have tax risk, then you're at risk of not having a tax efficient plan. And so you want to do a good tax analysis. The next one is life insurance. A lot of people don't understand that life insurance has a lot of different options. You can build a life insurance policy that will have your maximum death benefit. You might not be interested in a max death benefit. You might be interested in cash value, that you can grow this cash value of this life insurance policy and then someday start taking from it. And that is really often beneficial because it's very tax advantaged if you do it that way. And then finally, you can have some living benefits, so that's an option. Your next one might be for sources of income. Right now, the short-term money market account rates are really good, and maybe you want a shorter-term, CD, anywhere from like 6 months to 9 months to maybe even a year. And so you can get some good returns short-term. So especially as you get into retirement, if you've pegged where you're going to pull your funds from, that's a really good way to separate yourself from sequence of return risk as you enter retirement. Maybe you want a stock portfolio. You can say, I'm going to get a super strong dividend portion of the stock equity exposure in my portfolio. And then those dividends are actually going to be your income that you pull from. And there's purpose and there's reason, and you understand that there's risk, but you know why you're doing that. The next one might just be some bonds. Right now, bonds have got beat up quite a bit in the last couple years, but now there's some bonds out there that might be a good fit where you can pull the coupons and then once it matures, you can look at different investment options. Last couple things is maybe a part-time job. If sometimes your happiest retirees have that part-time job that doubles as a part-time mission. And so sometimes that's a great place for a little bit of retirement income. And if you're under 65 and you're taking, if you're under your full retirement age and you're taking your Social Security, then just be aware that your earned income can't be over $21,240 right now in the year 2024. And then finally, a paid off house. When you can go into retirement without the debt of your house, you really open up what your contractual lifetime income needs to be. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day.
Everyone knows the BBB is the Better Business Bureau, but depending on what you need, it's the Better Plumber Bureau, the Better Auto Mechanic Bureau, the Better Accountant Bureau. That's because the BBB connects people with businesses they can trust. So think of the BBB as the better check that business out first so you don't get ripped off bureau. Be smart. Always look for the BBB seal because it's looking out for you. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
As you are planning for retirement, where's your journey taking you? Do you know where you are going? How are you going to get there? And what's the best route to take? Do you have a personal retirement roadmap? At Centennial Wealth Advisory, we specialize in retirement planning, and we have designed a complimentary retirement roadmap video series that can be customized based on your personal circumstance and preferences. There is no cost and no obligation. Simply go to cen-wealth.com/roadmap and provide us with some basic information that will guide you to your on-demand, customized retirement roadmap video. Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well.
My name is Troy Baker. I'm the Vice President of Community Relations and Educational Foundation at the Better Business Bureau serving Western Michigan. When it comes to your finances, being wise with your money is so critical. We want to make sure at the Better Business Bureau that you're an informed consumer and that you have the resources necessary to make the right decision for you and your family. That often means being deliberate with the businesses and organizations that you work with. We always encourage businesses to look up the business before they spend their money or invest with them or take the time to sit down and do work with an organization. Learn about them first. Go to bbb.org and find out about that business and what they stand for and what kind of track record they have. When you go to our website at bbb.org, you're going to learn all sorts of information about a business and what they mean and how they operate. You'll find out what their rating is. Every business gets a letter grade, just like you get in school, A+ through F. Obviously, the closer to A+ you can get, the better your organization is doing. Those businesses that are rated F usually have some issues, and consumers need to pay attention to that before they go ahead and do business with that organization. You'll also learn about what kind of industry they're in, how do you get a hold of the business, what kind of reviews do they have, and how do they handle complaints. When we talk about reviews, it's important to know about the reviews themselves and the platform you're looking at. With most websites, when it comes to reviews, there's no way to verify that that review was left by an actual customer of the business. Most platforms could have been a customer, could have been the owner up at midnight talking about how great his business was and typing out 5-star reviews. You never really know. One of the benefits of the reviews at bbb.org is that we've got a system in place to verify they were from actual customers. So you know when you go and you look at those reviews, that was an actual customer of that business that left that message. So knowing who you're dealing with works so much better when you can trust that the things that you're seeing were really from customers and not from some random person saying something that may or may not have had interactions with that business. When it comes to complaints, one of the things we point out is not all complaints are bad. Just because a business has a complaint doesn't mean it's a bad business. Businesses are often going to have customers that aren't going to be happy. That happens. The important thing from a customer standpoint is to read those complaints and see what did that customer say, and more importantly, how did that business respond? That's the critical piece, is what will that business do for you if, heaven forbid, you end up in a situation that goes bad. And that's one of the key things at bbb.org is that we take all of those interactions with the customer and the business and put it out there for everybody to see. So the next customer can make a decision whether this is the type of business they want to work with. And then one of the key things you'll find at bbb.org is whether that business is BBB accredited. We've got lots of businesses in northern Michigan, and we're proud to work with lots of different types of businesses. But those businesses that have earned BBB accreditation have proven that they've got a track record of doing things the right way. They meet our standards of trust and ethics. The BBB's been around for more than 100 years, working with organizations, trying to help them build a trustworthy marketplace. So those BBB accredited businesses really work to make sure that they're honest and ethical and will treat consumers the way they need to and really build a trustworthy marketplace and community. That's why we're so excited to work with all of our BBB accredited businesses, because we know that those are the type of businesses that if a consumer is looking for somebody they can trust, those are the businesses they should be looking for. So when you're looking for somebody to work with, go to bbb.org. Do a Google search, learn about the organization first, and what you find will really help you find those trustworthy businesses that will treat you the right way and handle things the right way.
Finding a reputable business shouldn't require luck or chance. But how can you tell who you can trust? Pro tip: the BBB connects people with businesses they can trust. So think of the BBB as the better, check with the BBB first, because better businesses are honest and commit to high ethical standards bureau. That's why they're better. Always look for the sign of a better business and find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
When it comes to your financial future, what's the value of a truly objective opinion? As someone looking for financial guidance, you have choices. There are thousands of captive financial professionals who work as employees for large national insurance companies and brokerages. There are also many independent financial professionals who aren't bound to any given insurance company, investment strategy, or product. So what's the difference, and why does it really matter to you? Consider this. If you walked into a doctor's office with a sore throat, a bad cough, and a high fever, you'd expect that doctor to assess your symptoms, do a thorough diagnosis, and ultimately hand you a prescription written to cure your particular ailment. In other words, you'd expect the doctor to consider all the medications available and give you his or her absolute best thinking on what's best for you. On the other hand, if that doctor opened the cupboard and only had 3 or 4 prescriptions available, maybe those offered by his or her favorite pharmaceutical rep, most patients would immediately raise an eyebrow, suspicious that they might not be getting what was really in their best interest. The same may be true for your financial well-being. If your financial professional is an employee who's contractually bound to represent a given insurance or investment company, only offering their products while there are literally hundreds of others available, how sure can you be that you're being offered what's truly best for your situation? You don't walk into a tailor or seamstress shop to get clothing off some rack. You go for a custom-tailored fit. And with something as important as your financial future at hand, the stakes are even higher. We believe you deserve a truly objective opinion. We think you deserve to consider more of the available options. And we believe your financial future is worth a custom-tailored prescription to help you feel confident for the days ahead. If you'd like a second opinion on your current retirement strategy, simply contact our office today.
Living life isn't always easy. It puts up challenges and obstacles you'll have to overcome. There are responsibilities. You put in effort to provide and take care of your family, to save and invest, to balance work and life. Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well. If you like watching Retiring Well, make sure to go to youtube.com/retiringwell and click the subscribe button to never miss any of our TV shows and other informative videos.
Let's take a little bit of a deep dive into 2 very familiar, likely, investments that are out there that you commonly hear about: stocks and bonds. But today I want to talk specifically about the risk associated with them. You know, we like to think as investors that we want to have something with the least amount of risk possible, but the highest growth potential. We kind of want the best of both worlds. So I want to talk a little bit about stocks and bonds because sometimes I think there's some misunderstandings when we think of the risk associated with these various products. So first, stock. Well, what is a stock? Well, stock is basically a fractional ownership of a company. If you own a share of stock or multiple shares of stock, basically you are a little bit of an owner of that company. Whatever the stock you have voting rights through proxies and stuff like that. And then you have a share of earnings, or depending upon what they're doing. So that value of that stock is determined really by the value of that company. Now, obviously, if it's traded on the open markets, there's some other influences that can determine the day-to-day value. But generally speaking, if you have a share of stock, it's some fractional ownership, so therefore it's a fractional value of what that company is worth. So the risk associated with stocks fall back to that company, right? So if the company was to go bankrupt, as an example, that's a risk to you because you're a partial owner, so your value likely would go to 0 if it was a full bankruptcy. Systematic risk, as an example, kind of the old story, all ships rise and fall with the tide. So if maybe your company is doing okay, but maybe it's grouped into an area where they're struggling or something. Think of like 2008. A lot of stocks fell during that time period, right? That's kind of that systematic risk where a lot of things are falling at the same time and you get grouped into that. You know, inflationary pressures, depending upon what you're making, political pressures, did the government maybe change the regulations or something in the industry that your stock is in that then makes it harder to make an earning, or maybe they can't sell their product or some variation of it. So a lot of these different risks have associated with that stock. So now let's switch gears and talk about bonds. What is a bond? Well, basically, it's a debt. You know, if you're giving money to a company or government or agency or something like that, you're basically loaning them money and they're giving you some interest rate in return for that. So that is an essence of a bond. It's a debt instrument. So what are the risks when it comes to bonds? Well, the company, the government, the agency that you're lending the money to, what if they go bankrupt? Well, there's a concern about that. Now, as a bondholder, you're in a better position than a stockholder and that sort of thing. But again, depending upon the assets of the company and stuff like that, you may or may not get your investment back originally. Interest rate risk. You know, as interest rates change and you're in a stated or fixed interest rate, it could be an advantage to you or it could be a disadvantage. As simply as an example, if I buy a long-term bond and I'm getting, let's say, 2 or 3%, and then all of a sudden interest rates rise a little bit, and now a long-term bond I can get 4 or 5, well, I'm trapped in this 2 or 3% bond and I could get better somewhere else. So a little bit of an interest rate risk perspective from that, or reinvestment risk, they call it as well. When that bond matures, where is interest rates going to be at that point? So when you start looking at these two together, when we look at different risk and stuff associated with that, you have to ask yourself as an investor what risk you're comfortable with. Well, a lot of folks don't necessarily migrate to just one or the other. They look at both in conjunction and talk about like a diversified portfolio. And they start mixing these two together to try to mitigate some of the risk that maybe the other one has in an effort to try to make their portfolio more efficient and have the higher probability of returns. So again, when we look at just these two, there's so many more out there that you can be invested in, but just these two specific ones, we have those two characteristics of risk there. So nothing is risk-free per se when you look at those two specifically. There's some that get close, you know, out there, and people will argue certain ways, but at the end of the day, there's risk associated with that, and you have to, as an investor, ask yourself what you're comfortable with. Make sure you know what you have as well. What portion do you have in stocks and bonds, and what specific ones do you have? If you don't know what you have or you're not sure, give us a call. We'd love to walk through, do a risk assessment with you, and help you determine those various layers of risk that you have. As we live in today's world with changing interest rates and other pressures out there, wouldn't you like to know what you have and feel more confident and comfortable with your retirement plan? We hope to help you plan to retire well.
Your grandchildren are precious to you. They are your life. This is your time to have that special relationship. Taking care of yourself is taking care of them. Centennial Wealth Advisory is offering a free, no-obligation retirement review to make sure you don't run out of money during your retirement. Centennial Wealth Advisory. Your best is yet to come.
Make the most of Social Security. Although Social Security isn't designed to cover all of your income needs, it's an important part of the retirement puzzle. Download our free booklet on the Social Security decisions at cen-wealth.com and learn how to optimize Social Security for your situation, why timing is so important when it comes to your benefits, ways to supplement your Social Security, and more. There is no cost and no obligation. Simply go to cen-wealth.com, scroll down, and click the download link to get your free booklet on the Social Security decisions.
Yes, the single life. No spouse telling me I don't need to buy that extra bottle of bourbon for my collection, no difficulties with relatives or opposing views. It sounds great, right? Well, from a retirement planning standpoint, we do have to think about now you're taking on 100% of the responsibility of your financial planning. We have to be thinking about how are we going to cope with inflation? How do we protect against the recession? How do we just stay up to date with the ever-changing landscape? You know, over the last few years, we had the Secure Act and the Secure Act 2.0. A lot of different things we have to be thinking about. So part of our discussion today is going to be thinking through if you're going into retirement either single or thinking through for our joint households, how could a premature death scenario affect our retirement where now we're in a single type situation? So we'll discuss some of these different principles that we need to be thinking about and how we can apply this to our financial situation. The first thing you want to start to think about is making informed decisions. That sounds like it's common sense, but we have to start to really dig a little bit deeper inside of there. One of the things we have to be concerned with is a lot of the decisions we make specifically on the income side of things in retirement, whether that's pension or Social Security, A lot of these decisions are irrevocable, meaning we can't go back and change them. So we have to be very informed and very tactical on how we go make these decisions. So if we're in that pre-retirement phase and we're looking to be retiring over the next few years, starting with our pension, we have to start to dig in and look at all the different pension options that are available to us. It's not as simple as just taking a single life survivor option. So if we're in that single situation, that's usually the default. I have seen over the last few years a lot of pension programs that now allow you to name non-spouse beneficiaries. So if we're something around legacy goals and we want to leave assets behind, that might be something to consider. Maybe we want to start to think about taking a reduced benefit to be able to provide more legacy to our heirs. In addition, if you're in the situation where it's a joint household, those options become very important. We have to be thinking about, well, could our survivors survive off reduced income? Which of those survivor options should we be looking at? Do we have a step-up provision in our pension? There's a lot of different variables inside of those, and again, once you make that election, you can't go back and change it, so you have to be very careful on which of those you're picking. Same concept with Social Security. We typically look at these Social Security break-even points. We need to be concerned with when we're taking our benefits, but also we have to start to think about, well, if there is a premature death in that scenario, what spousal or widow benefits are available? Maybe you have benefits you can take off of an ex-spouse. We have to be looking at all these different variables inside of just the income piece. In addition to that, we have to be thinking about, well, what other sources do we have to pull from? If our income isn't enough between pension, Social Security, or part-time work, and we're relying on our other investment assets, we have to be thinking about our different IRMA brackets, single tax brackets, how this is going to affect our subsidies for health insurance, all of these different variables where we really need to start to align an income plan with your needs in retirement. You also need to start thinking about RMDs. Again, I talked about Secure Act 2.0. That completely changed the landscape of how our RMDs work. So do we have to be thinking about a looming tax time bomb behind the scenes? If all of our money is in a pre-tax position, how do we start to utilize that again to try to limit some of those overall expenses with our taxes and insurance in retirement? One of the most important things you have to start to really do is have a team of individuals. You know, at Centennial Wealth Advisory, we work as a holistic planning approach. So we have a team of individuals that can help you not only on the tax side of things, but we can help you with the investments, aligning that income stream, even on the insurance. So we can help you put together that holistic plan to really look at all of these different variables to align with your retirement. We also need to be thinking about long-term care inside of there. You know, most of the situations we look at when someone's needing some level of care, they'll have a spouse that can help take care of them. Well, if that spouse isn't there in the single life, well, who's going to facilitate that need? If we don't have family that's local or we don't want to put that burden on them, how do we supplement that? Probably need to start looking at some sort of long-term care insurance, or if you're going to self-insure, again, back to that tax piece. So one of the things we often look at is, well, maybe we should start dequalifying assets, meaning pulling assets out of some of those pre-tax positions, moving them into some sort of long-term care life insurance strategy that can leverage some of those other goals. Again, it always comes back to your overall plan. So if you're going into retirement and you are single and you need help looking at some of these bigger picture items, looking at your pension, running the break-even and Social Security, we'd be happy to sit down with you. Or if you're simply looking at stress testing your portfolio and seeing, well, how does these different variables come up if there were to be a premature death in our scenario, that's what our team is here to help you with.